this, as I think Mark shared, and as you all well know, it's a 24/7, 365 kind of experience. As the rules have evolved, the recruiting rules have evolved. It's it's really an around-the-clock kind of job, and it's one of those jobs that's really a lifestyle. So I want to, on behalf of myself personally, our athletic department at Michigan State University, thank Mark for an extraordinary career. Those of you that have heard me before, whenever I'm on a speaking engagement, we talk about three things. We talk about Michigan State being successful on the field of play, in the classroom, and setting up our students to be successful in wherever their life's pursuit might take them. And Mark certainly has achieved success in all three of those categories. And I think as his comments reflect, he would prioritize them perhaps in the reverse order that I mentioned them. His priority being the success of his student athletes in their life's pursuit, which requires success in the classroom, and picking up 114 wins along the way is not a bad gig. Today, hearing Mark make comments to his staff and his team was very difficult, a very bittersweet moment. But Mark's success really, for me, was captured, and I won't name names for fear of embarrassing the innocent, but captured when I walked out of the room, and one of our key academic advisors was really emotionally upset and crying. And I think when you can have a head football coach retire and see the impact that has on an academic advisor, that speaks to the character of the coach, and his commitment to academics, and his commitment to the success of his student athletes. And so for me, that really captured today in one very short vignette. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
So I guess what was the timing that you found out about Mark's announcement, when he planned to retire, and what has been your timeline over maybe the last few weeks or months in terms of lining up potential successors?
Well, as Mark said, it's been an evolving conversation, and we've had a number of talks over the last number of weeks and months. But I think at some level, although Mark's one of those people that I wish we could find a way to clone or keep here forever. With that said, because transitions are natural things in life, we've been planning for the various permutations and the various options for some time, and have a process in place by which we'll expeditiously find a successor.
Bill, two quick ones. Do you have a time frame when you want to name the next one? And at Michigan State, the Board of Trustees actually hires the coach. Have you discussed with them? I mean, are they going to be more actively involved? Is it going to be you bringing them to your selection? Can you get into that, please?
Well, in terms of the time frame, I'd say we're going to move as quickly as we possibly can. And beyond that, it's hard to give you a specific time frame. You're correct. A question I can adroitly answer as a former board secretary. The Board of Trustees does, per board policy, vote on the head coach, among a number of other roles. So I will be having conversations with the board. I've already talked to Chairperson Byram, and we'll have further conversations with the board in the coming days.
Bill, I was curious, is this timing for you, would you kind of categorize this as a difficult timing at this point in February to go down and find a head coach? And will you take any of Mark's input or thoughts on potential replacements or direction?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. As part of the, when you're sort of sitting together with your head coach and going through those sort of, what if this, what if that, suppose this, suppose that kinds of conversations that I think people have. We've already had a number of conversations where he's provided his perspective. I thought he very thoughtfully articulated a set of criteria in one of his last questions up here before me. So yes, I'd consider Mark's input thoughtfully. And your first question?
Just the timing, it being early February.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, yes. You know, I don't know that there's ever a good time. There are times that are better than other times. But I think that that when you've won 114 games and you're our all-time winningest coach, and you've taken us to the places Mark's taken us, you've set the bar where Mark set it, that I was comfortable operating on his timeline, whatever that would be, and I think we'll find a very good coach.
So Stephen and Nick, Justin and Green.
Bill, same question I guess I hadn't asked Mark. You know, what do you sort of see as the desirable traits or qualities in a coach to be successful here? And I guess the second part is Mike Tressel being the interim. Would he have an opportunity to earn that job, or could you even see a scenario where he coaches out the 2020 season as the interim? Or do you want to? Is it your total preference to have a new permanent coach by game one?
So in terms of your first question on characteristics, as I said, I think Mark articulated those pretty thoughtfully. A while ago, several years ago, had a conversation with Tyrone Willingham, and we were sitting watching a game, and I turned to him and said, "Well, Coach, you know, when you recruit players, what do you look for? What are, you know?" Just making small talk with Coach Willingham, and he turned to me with a smile and he said, "Really, only one thing, and number two is a distant second, and the number one thing is character." And so I think that you know, to me that was a wise lesson from him. I think that as Mark articulated, I think Michigan State has been most successful when it's looked at somebody that knows the territory. There's an old line from the first song in the Music Man. You got to know the territory, and I think that's true in a lot of things in life. You got to know the territory, and so I think that's important. You know, as I said, someone with character and integrity. Optimally, someone that knows the Big Ten. Somebody that knows and understands Michigan State and our culture, I think fits very important. Doesn't mean it has to be an alum. Doesn't, you know, but somebody that gets the flavor of who we are as an institution is important. In terms of Mike, I think the world of Mike. I think he stepped in as the acting person, for which we're very grateful, and I think he'll do a tremendous job in that role. In terms of who's on our list, internal, external, all of that, we'll keep to ourselves for the moment.
Bill, I know you had said that you wanted to let Mark kind of dictate his timeline, but for you, as someone who's not been at this job that long, how long have you been actively preparing for a moment like this situation? Because it is something for you. It's new. You haven't done it before.
Well, February 4th or 5th, I'm not going to get the time exactly right, of 2018, I was a Sunday. I walked into Cole's house with a to-do list for the incoming acting president, John Engler, and the number one thing on my list was that we needed to find an acting athletic director. And to my sort of complete surprise, John asked me to step into that role. And so today is, I think, the last day of my second year as athletic director. And I think at some level we've been preparing for this for 2 years. And I don't sort of mean that in a coy way, but as I've said all along, you know, Mark is a person we want to keep as long as we can keep him. I think he's obviously done a tremendous job, but over the months you think about, you know, we've in my 2 years we've only had one coaching search for a rowing coach, and I challenge most of you to name the rowing coach. But I think, you know, in all of our 19 head coaches, you never know what's going to happen. You know, the sort of proverbial You hope nobody gets hit by a bus walking out of the game tonight, but you just never know. And so that's an ongoing process that we talk about with a few of my key senior staff on a regular basis, and you're constantly sort of scanning the horizon and thinking what you do. And certainly in the last number of weeks, as conversations with Mark have begun to think about this as a possibility, we've gotten more into the weeds. But no, I think it's something that if you're doing your job, you've always got in the back of your mind, and you've always got some flavor of a list or a set of ideas, or at the very least a set of criteria.
Just to quickly follow up on that, will it be an in-house search, or will you guys bring in some sort of help from a committee or a search firm or anything like that you can share?
Well, we've got an in-house group, and the degree to which we're going to use a search firm we'll figure out shortly.
And then secondarily, since this is, besides the rowing coach hire, this is a big hire for you. This is an opportunity for you to really put a stamp on your time as athletic director at Michigan State. How serious do you take that? How much do you kind of feel the fan base right now wanting to see this program return to where it was just a few years ago?
Well, I think there's sort of a two-part answer to that question, and it's sort of a dichotomy of parts that there's an old an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote from the Crack Up that talking about having two opposing ideas in your mind at the same time and still having the ability to function. And you know, I think from my perspective in this role, on the one hand, I haven't been going to MSU football games for 50 years, but it's pretty close. And I remember having tears streaming down my face at that Indiana game in 1987, probably the most special game I've ever been to, because it meant we were going to the Rose Bowl. Something that, as a young kid, I wasn't, we had some rocky years. I wasn't sure was ever going to happen in my lifetime. And we've had ups and downs, and so I understand very deeply how important this is to the Spartan community, to our now 550,000 plus living alumni, to our former players who built this tradition, and to the other 24 sports who rely on the revenue generated from this program. So on the one hand, I think one could feel the absolute weight of the earth upon them with a critical decision like this. On the other hand, I think you have to do your job and find the best person, and there's a process, and we've got good people, and we've been working this, and we're ready for it, and so we'll work the process. And I'm confident that working the process with our values and it will lead us to the right person and point us in the right direction, and I think we'll find an excellent coach. And so, on the one hand, I think you have to acknowledge and feel the weight of how important this is. And on the other hand, I don't think you can let that crush you. You have to come in and take your coat off every morning and do your job, and we'll do that.
One final one here with Graham.
Bill, you've got a relatively new president at the school, and I'm wondering how much he has talked about wanting to be involved with this, how much input you expect in that internal circle, and will a guy like Tom Izzo be in that circle, like that group that's doing this search? Who is it of names you can share, I guess?
Well, I would say, first, I've been in regular contact with President Stanley, and he'll be, we'll update him regularly. He obviously has a extraordinary schedule as president, and won't be part of a search committee per se, but we'll regularly update President Stanley, and he'll be an important voice in that conversation. I think we've taken a page out of the playbook from the last search, which I think was by any measure successful, and two of the individuals on that search will help us again. Obviously, Alan Haller was an important member of that search, and as one of our two deputy athletic directors, as a former college athlete and professional athlete in our football program, will be an important part of that search. Coach Izzo was a part of that search last time. Obviously, he tips off shortly. He's in mid-season, so having him as an active member of the search in the way that he was last time will probably be challenging. But I think Coach Izzo is an important voice in our department, and it will be an important voice in this process. And beyond that, we'll have a few other folks help us, but it'll be a tight, quick process.
So can you share anything about Mark's new role and what he might be doing?
Sure. I think those of you familiar with Mark's contract, there was a provision in his contract, as there is in Coach Izzo's, that under certain circumstances, upon their retirement from coaching, they'd have the opportunity, if they wish, to fulfill what I might sort of generally refer to as an ambassador role. Mark and I have had a number of conversations, and I can't say that we have sort of finalized what exactly all of that means, and I think he wants a bit of a reduced schedule, which I certainly understand, but I think Mark can be extraordinarily valuable to the department in a variety of ways. He'll help us with alumni and donor engagement. We've got a number of building projects that we'll be considering over the next while, and he can help us prepare for those and fundraise for those. We've talked a little bit about maybe teaching a class, taking some of his lessons of leadership and expanding those beyond our student athletes to perhaps a class that involves undergraduates at the university outside of athletics. So I think and then I think there's just general wisdom that he's had from a long career in athletics that can benefit our department. So I don't know that we've totally nailed it down, but those kinds of things are what I see Mark doing in a new role, and I think he's very interested, as he said, in staying active with student athletes, and obviously he'll respect give space to the new coaches appropriate when he hands that baton over, but I think he wants to be actively engaged in the life of our department and university, and we're very excited that he is.
Can I get one more? You mentioned Mark's contract. He was due a $4.2 or $3 million retention bonus last month, I believe. Did he get that in full? Did that happen as it was illustrated in the contract, or did anything change?
Yes, I can't tell you whether technically a check has been cut, but per the terms of the contract, he'll receive that bonus.
Bill, there are public documents alleging that there were recruiting violations that occurred under Mark Dantonio's tenure. I'm wondering if the university is aware of it, and if you guys have addressed that or spoken with the NCAA at all.
Well, the university is aware of it. To the best of our knowledge, as I understand the allegations, they're patently false. We'll be happy to defend that in a court of law. Insofar as there are ongoing legal issues, I'm not sure there's a whole lot more I can say. But that does give me the opportunity to, in a generic way, to say that in the first year that I was athletic director, there were a number of allegations raised involving Mark or Tom's name. I used the word integrity, and I did that very intentionally. And I stopped doing it, I guess, because you just can't do the same thing all the time. But perhaps it's a good opportunity to say that from my perspective, Mark and Tom are two people that are just of extraordinary integrity, and I think that that will bear itself out.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.